Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the sister, and we're continuing with Saturnastra, Deasura. Well, we're gonna finish it. This is like the last chapter. Chapter 22. Month 9, day 12, year 7. Today we intercepted one of the shipments of a certain Count Unheil, and just like all of the others, he was performing illegal tax evasion in the form of contraband. And they had legitimate goods hiding contraband, and it's usually 90% legit, 10% contraband, and the profits of the sale go unreported. Ergo, we had traditional tax evasion, and usually operations of this sort involve bribes and taking rounds that are usually on patrol by the Navy. And since there has been a gap in the western deserts of the continent, I was ordered to patrol the area and look for these legitimate goods. And there are varying degrees of contraband operations, and on a small scale, these are individual sailors smuggling dragonets, speltos, and enchanted arms inside hidden compartments. And they use the sales in order to speed up the purchases of their own ships, and others involve entire crews and deal with ballistic weapons, gunpowder, armor, swords, precious metals, and lead construction. Constructions made of lead are illegal in the continent, but many crews prefer to sell them illegally because it is such an easy, malleable metal. And my dispersed children in the other ships are also into the contraband game. And they have rough with merchants that will buy and sell anything, so that is why it is often friction between them and the others in Verogero. And part of the proceeds from their operation goes into repaying my kindness. And the irony of the entire situation is not lost upon me, but whatever. And the largest schooner tried to run away, but the modifications the twins have made for our bulky galleon allow us to unpace it. And they were surprising decent. Galleons on average can only run at 6 knots an hour, and ours could go as far as 9 or even 15, which was good considering what we were working with. And as for the schooner, Rudolph and his master had some clever ideas to bridge the gap, and by messing with the wind, the schooner was always flying towards the wind while we sailed with him. So after an uneventful 4-hour chase, we caught our mark. And being a merchant ship, it didn't have plenty of weapons, and whatever ammunition they had was already used up since they were not firing at us. And we got within melee range. They pelted us with bows and occasional bullets, and we waited patiently behind our impenetrable long-range shields. And the shields had a cookie design of my own make. An idea for obtaining ammunition from the enemy, and on contact, the fires would get stuck into an area and placed into the appropriate bind. And it's gonna try to dislodge itself from our anchors by cutting the ropes, and Rudolph was in a fighting sort of mood, so I allowed him to go alone. And fighting a number is always a good exercise, and he was trying the new physical magic, and physical as it did amplify the natural abilities of the user. And Rudolph was lacking in both departments, so at full power he was just a very athletic human. And instead of using his gear Volga, he was using a wooden staff, and the crystal at the tip amplified the blows and had a bit of a taser feel to it. And we were watching the fighting coolly, but eventually the zombies got bored, so they entered as backup, and they riled up the fancy. And they got riled up at the faintest scent of blood, and it's a bit problematic with their eyes rolled back at their head as they cut away into the enemy. Not that it affected their fighting skills much, in fact they got better, and the change was kind of nervy for their opponents. And together with Rudolph, they laid all resistance flat in less than 20 minutes. And I entered the ship once our targets were nicely wrapped in bows, and the zombies had the bit of a habit of being a bit too literal with my orders. And while the captives were making excuses to Marianne, I went down into the cargo area to examine the goods. And there were the standard goods like grain, textile, coffees, and even sugar, and in the corner there was about a dozen slaves for good measure. And in those situations I confiscated those goods, and they were sent to my sister and managed as she saw fit. As a courtier, I was allowed to take whatever I wanted. And we would get paid once every 3 months, and the salary would be more frequent if we were operating on the mainland. And for now we were at sea, and before sending them on their way, I gave a physical examination to the slaves, and sometimes they were used as mules to smuggle illegal substance. And in the land, the pudgy dragons were always sniffing around for them, and anyone caught smuggling such goods were executed on the spot. And it is for this reason that the sea route was preferable, and the opium trade was not allowed, nor was the San Pedro cactus. And the merchants from Nuhag were bracing this desert on a regular basis to get those cactus. And they were mixed with other less harmful spiky varieties like opportunia and the feru cactus and the chin cactus. Marianne gave me the gist of the misinformation provided by the captain, and he was smuggling weapons, and the quartermaster had his own hidden shipment of opiates. And the list went on and on. However, the mastermind behind the evil character was a powder monkey named Eddie. And for some reason, there was a booming market in the selling of cacti on the mainland. And ever since Aragon started its flowering program, a demand for different types of vegetation was created. And the cacti were brought in to fill this demand, and it was then that Eddie discovered a different usage for the San Pedro cactus. And following the law of the land, Eddie was as good as dead, along with the quartermaster. As with most things, enforcement of the law was under the jurisdiction of the captain, and no looked upon me with expectation, and whether they live or die, all depended upon me. And Johnny and I said, "You decide what to do with them loose here." And I returned to my ship to sort through the confiscated merchandise, and in the meantime the twins and their assistants were cannibalizing the ship and taking whatever useful material they could find that could still allow the ship to float, and most of the wood was the one used for decoration, and our ship was not pretty in the least, but at least it was not bulky. And it was this lack of decoration which had earned the ship the nickname the eyesore or the feasting seas. And indeed, I often found this galleon to be boring in comparison to my whimsical kite runner, and how I missed my former little ship. And now back on the schooner I had intercepted, the zombies were trying to decipher the decision of Lucier. And one of them said to Lucier, "If they are to leave, raise your left wing." And Lucier, apparently not understanding the question, turned his head sideways, and he scratched his neck with the tip of his hand. And Bonnie Reed moaned and said, "Oh, what about it? Let's just vote on it and continue with our life." "Our captain ordered Lucier to decide, not us," said Rhoda sternly. And for a moment Bonnie wondered if Rhoda was serious or not. And slowly the zombies and some of the other crew members started deserting the ship as their task was completed, and in the end the last person to leave the ship was Lucier, when he found himself without any companions. And the shipmates always had a hard time leading with Lucier, and the bizarre appear and his "I do whatever I want when I want" attitude did not sit well with them. Just the other day, Jean was bathing when Lucier popped his head through the curtain, and unexpecting Lucier, Jean naturally squealed, and Lucier flinched as if struck by a blow, and then he proceeded to step on Jean's left feet. And it was not a strong step, rather it added to the annoyance of the entire situation, and since the people always locked the door to the bathroom, and we sailed always with the entire cargo, with the exception of the food supply, and I saw the zombie bar coughing up his meal, and shivering he added, You would not happen to have a horseshoe." "Let me take a look at my stock," I said, shaking my skirt. And I got out a horseshoe, and then I said, "Here you go. It's not the same. I need one that gets the little nails towards it, the one that makes pictures with iron dust," said Zombie Bar, using his paw to throw the horseshoe at the floor. I closed my eyes and looked at my stones. Eventually I found a little piece of lobestones, and lobestones are a rare mineral to find on land. So I always acquired a handful whenever I go deep ocean diving, and there's lots of great stuff under the sea. Anyhow, I get Zombie by the lobestone inside the little pouch, and tied it in a bow around his neck like a collar, and his stomach it got cleaned up as soon as I gave him the lobestone. And not bothering to give sense, Zombie Bar went to warm himself upon the deck. And the day drew on uneventfully as the fog descended through the desert and into the ocean from the mountains. Don't forget Zombie Bar, it be a cat. Nothing could be seen all around, but the twins had a compass, so we simply stayed within the course. Month 13, day 27, year 7. It has been decided one without much of a fuss to break the monotony of our oceanic patrol with a little excursion, and most of the scouting work was done by porpoise, which were used to fish alongside from time to time, and the desert was interesting enough for my crew, like an alien light skin. And I had ever seen a place that looked like it since it was the start of winter. The temperature was a pleasant 67 degrees, and it was expected to rise at 74 around noon. And the travel pattern consisted of the 20 zombies, Rhoda, Mary Ann, Sissy Sam, Clarice, Lucier, and Baby. And for being a desert, it had plenty of greenery in this part where we docked. And the southwestern region got rain every once in a while, so it was enough to support cacti, ponds, agaves, lagoons, and plenty of shrubs. After walking for 20 minutes, we had to stop because he noticed an interesting-looking truck called Ephedra. And we gathered the trunks for medicinal purposes, and during the gathering, Baby was bit by a coral snake, and he felt numbness at the arm and started sweating, and he was back to his normal self after a quick panacea spell. And from then on, my crew started walking on pins and needles, and they became aware of plenty of other snake, rats, and lizards. And despite feeling a bit queasy, baby insisted on traveling along with us, and close to noon, Martha flew to our group to check up on us. And she gestured and squatted a lot, and I asked, "Is there something the matter?" And Martha scratched her shoulder with her beak for a moment, and then went back to making her noises, and I started to slowly walk back to the ship to see if she would shut the hell up. And when this did not calm her down, we decided to continue along our way. And we found a bizarre dome-shaped building, and based on the holes on the walls, it was made of brick and concrete. And after walking inside, Dominic and one of the zombies noticed something odd about the wooden floor, and he took hold of a lumberjack axe and hacked away at the floor, and after removing some of the plywood, a basement was seen under the dim light of his lantern. Says hidden basement always held goodies. We would set about looking for the true entrance of this basement, and it was discovered outside, partially covered by sand and shadowed by some shrubs. And we pulled the iron door open and peered into the dark stony staircase, and the sun was slowly moving behind the mountains, and we had about 2 hours of sunlight left. And after going upstairs, we opened an iron door which was almost rusted shut, and the walls were lined with mirrors, and the floor had a carpet that dulled each step, and at the center there was a large bucket filled with water, and it was big enough to fit one person. And I noticed that behind the mirror there was a fake door, and beyond it was one of those cushioned rooms where you usually put crazy people in the middle of it. And behind another mirror there was a music room with varieties of broken instruments, and the only one in one piece was a glass harmonica. And baby asked, "What is that?" "It's a glass harmonica," and taking a bit of water from the canteen, I lubricated the harmonica, and then I played them for them, the dance of the sugar plum fairy on the glass harmonica. And we took the glass harmonica out of the basement and closed the door behind us, and it was a humorous acquisition. And we arrived in time for supper, and Gideon had made an amazing beef stew filled with sweet potatoes, spinach, peas, a cod liver, and oil. After finding this first interesting trinket, we decided to go exploring whenever the opportunity arose. Month 15, day 30, year 7. The new year is just around the corner, and while explaining quirks about my people and my tradition, the idea of celebrating birthdays became prominent. And traditionally, birthday celebrations were frowned upon by the priest of Lara as an immoral ostentation. And as with every personal holidays were demonized, where religious ones were celebrations were put on their pedestal. And the idea was popularized in my ship after celebrating the celebration of Farah, baby, and Clarissa's birthday. And the first was to catch on to this idea with the zombies and other marine companions, and even Lucia seemed livelier during the festivities. And after getting a brief survey of the days, most of them fell on the winter and in the midsummer. And the new year also became a subject of much conversation. And the celebration that seemed mundane to me were treated like a novel, imaginary idea for my crew. And considering the day-to-day monotony that had become our lives as courtiers, we welcome any change to liven up our dear existence. And despite the festivities, we couldn't shake the feeling of doom and gloom, and many times I would find Lucy or Rhoda staring blankly at the ocean, just waiting, with eyes of fixed like those of a madman. And yet Tyrius too had finally broken the terrible news to his apprentice, and at the Rhoda's rate of growth, he was to become a mediocre magus at best. And aside from shallow mimicry, Rhoda had failed to do anything else, and mind you, he was stronger than many of his contemporaries. However, for our purposes, he's completely useless, even with the Geaboka I gifted him. And I said to him, "There's nothing to be ashamed of, Rhoda, and there are thousands of other mages who never amounted to much in their life. Even as undead, they were poor spellcaster." "This is not helping me one bit," Deasura said, Rhoda flatly. "On the outside, you will no longer suffer from spell exhaustion if you cast my drift," I said, smiling. "You can cast away, and nothing bad will happen to you." "Very clever, Captain, and why don't you make yourself useful and inform us of our next mission," said Rhoda coolly. And since we would have continued the same as before, and the messages from the budget dragons have become less frequent, and even the salaries have started to decrease. And based on the dragon's peripheral memory, the guy managing my case has started to dip into my cookie jar. And I decided to send Sanders to deal with the problem, and he says his stare has a way of unnerving people. And as of now, the twins are getting the ship back up north, and the northern waters provide better fishing grounds. And I sat down in my chair by the railings facing the moon, and under the lustrous, tenuous light of Titan, I closed my eyes and started to dream. And it had been a while since I had slept, and my apprehension with my surroundings had created in me a state of perpetual alertness. And even the slightest sound of movement makes me paranoid, and I dream of pale figures dressed in colorless dresses, and and the starless forest was painted in black and white. As for the sky, it was an aqueous blue. And I eventually arrived at my bed, whose head had a curtain was floating in the shape of a dome, and sleeping on the floor there was a red-headed gentleman dressed like a Moor, and a maiden wrapped in a white sheet stares down at his sleeping face. However, it is her shade and the strange creature behind her that draws my attention. And it was and bends like a splash of oil suspended upon a wave, and the oil grows and devours everything around it till it is all turned black as night. And about through the mass of infinite darkness, yet I was able to discern something in the distance, and as I got closer I was able to see something blue. And once I was standing before it, was like two stained glass windows, and the ring continued with a same ever floor, from the azure to the ebony to the black again. And when I awoke, I found myself to be alone. Alright, so that's the end of Saturnastra, Deasura. Bye bye and God bless.